So, what do you think about safer sex being taught in schools? And do you think that, the Board of Education could do more when it comes to teaching young people and teenage high school students in particular about sex and safer sex?
I think you don't hear too much enough about it in school. When I was in middle school, you heard about, like, they taught you about some of the diseases, they told you about condoms, but that's really all they really told you. So, like, I think they should do more, because there's a lot of, young girls getting pregnant or young kids getting infected with STDs or HIV or whatever it may be. So I think the more they, like, put it on them, not as, like, like too enforced, like pressuring, but more like fun and really educating them so they can be aware and know, like, what's safe and what's not, like what to do and what not to do.
Well, firstly, I think it's important, especially with the rates that we have. I remember watching 106 in Park one day around World AIDS Day, maybe like 2, 3, maybe even 4 years ago, and they said 57% of African American teenagers are infected with HIV, which just blew my mind. And it's almost in comparison for the rates of gay men and Black and Latino. But in school, I think it's important because cliches saying it takes a village to raise a child, and everybody could teach the child the same thing, but you never know who they're going to pick it up from. So school might be where they'll be like, okay. And then also it allows a comfort space for them to talk about it with their teacher and their friends. And I think especially, we've all been in school, we talk about stuff we don't talk about with our parents to our friends. And sex is one of them. We talk about what we did, what we want to do, what we've done, how we did it. We give little lessons and stuff like that.
My experience with safe sex in school is actually weird because we actually didn't have one. And my mind when I was younger was like really different. Like, I mean, it was regular. I was just not think or pay attention to stuff. So that's why I never brought it up to anybody else or to my mothers or my family members or to school teachers. But we actually never talked about it ever.
My opinions on safer sex being taught in school, I think that it should be taught in school. I think that every kid and every teenager, especially growing up in high school, is the perfect time and the perfect stage to where they want to experience sexual intercourse, and the only way to do it is safe. And some people have problems with parents at home, don't have time to teach them things like that. So I think that school is definitely a perfect way to teach kids safer sex.
So you're a New York City public school teacher, right?
Yes, I am.
How do you feel about sex being taught within the school system, and what are your opinions on what the Department of Education is doing when it comes to sex education for young people?
Well, I think it's a very good thing that they're introducing the sex ed classes. I know that at the school that I work at, they already have sex education classes, but not in depth. For example, they teach about human anatomy and biology, but not really about STDs, HIV and AIDS awareness. They don't go that far. So I think they should have a very in-depth curriculum for sex education in our school system. Absolutely.
I think it's the same thing as teaching every other subject. Like gym, what's the one that's like doing gym or sports and stuff? Or that's the same thing with sex. I think you could compare both of them, I guess.
So you don't feel it's that big of a deal? It could be taught in schools?
Yeah, it should. It's all around us. If they're not going to learn in school, they're going to learn outside of school. So it's better to learn the safe and proper way than to learn out in the streets and then get caught up in something.
Do you think if kids got sex education in schools, it would encourage them to be sexually active?
Yes and no.
Explain.
Because if they learn some of the things that scare them, because I know when they showed us the pictures of the diseases and stuff, they might be scared to have sex or scared to do this and that. But if they do want to have sex, at least if they're taught, they'll know what to do when the time is right.
I've always been the one to preach, but no one's really spoke to me about how to have safe sex and stuff like that. No one's really pushed it on me. And I've learned everything from experience, and that's how I've always been able to educate my peers and the younger generation and the older generation.
I feel that the youth should be educated on STDs, on HIV, AIDS, on having protected sex, on their own, biology, their sexual reproduction, the whole nine.
And the empowerment of making their own choices.
Absolutely.
Even if they choose not to use protection.
Right, and abstinence, of course. And, if the parents don't agree with it, then, there's always the consent form that can be sent home. And if they don't want their child to be part of that class or course, then, that could be done. That could be arranged.
What I know about safe sex is that you should use a condom. I actually learned that we have to look at the expiration date. I didn't know that. And that we can also use a female condom, which I didn't know that either. So that's what I know so far about it.
Being that they don't teach, I think that it's setting a lot of kids back, because the things that they could be learning could actually stop what's going on in the world today. You have some kids that's trying for their first experience, don't know how to use condoms, don't know what condoms is, don't know what lube is. These are stuff.
Just always, I know they hear this all the time, the same message, always use a condom, but it's so true. Even if you have to carry it in your wallet, because I carry one in my wallet all the time. I can open my wallet and show you a condom right now.
Show me.
Right here. And it always comes in handy if ever the time. It's always there. That's your left hand man. So always have your condom on.
Experience with safe sex education in school. We learned a lot. We had sometimes 3 to 5 day presentations every year in school, telling us about anal sex, vaginal sex, digital sex, oral sex, everything under the sun. We learned about dental dams, condoms, the anatomy. We really left no stone unturned. And I was actually I worked at the free clinic, but I was right by my high school, so I would actually help give those presentations, and not only to high schools, but to middle schools in the surrounding areas as well. So I was very much involved in sexual education. So yeah, we were very knowledgeable.
Is it really about safe sex, or is it about harm reduction? And I think that's where the fine line draws at, because you can't always tell people, oh, use protection. How do people get pregnant? How are we made? It's about harm reduction. Trusting your partner is going to get tested, and not being the one to be scared to bring up the topic of conversation. And I think a lot of people, they fear that. They fear, that conversation, like, oh, nowadays I'm more open than ever. Like, all of my peers, all of my gay kids, all of my friends, all of the younger generation, the older generation, I talk about it all.
My idea of safe sex is really, ultimately to be when I'm actually committed to somebody and actually using condoms on a regular basis. No exceptions at all whatsoever. Yeah, pretty much so. I'll leave if the guy says he doesn't want to use a condom. So I'm very adamant about that.
Do you have friends that don't use condom and they come to you and ask you questions about stuff?
Not that I know of. That's probably because I'm very proactive in throwing condoms at them. So,
like I said, they already have part of the science curriculum. Part of the science teachers, part of their job is to teach the reproductive system.
So they touch on it,
they touch on it, but nothing in depth. And
it's accepted pretty well.
Yeah, and no parents have complained at all. I work at a relatively small school, so I don't know how much of an impact my students' response would be, but so far I haven't really seen of any negative responses to that.
Just knowing to use being safe is the best way, period. I think that being safe is the best way.
And sometimes that scares young people, right?
Yeah. That's very scary. Sex is, period, is scary sometimes. It's like something you want to do, but then again it's scary at the same time. So you have to make sure you're safe.
So what's one thing that you can tell high school boys in New York City or all around? What's one thing you want to tell the high schoolers?
Don't act it up, pack it up, wrap it up. Stop. I'm just like, but they just need to wrap it up. Young men, young women, everybody just be safe. It's the best way.
And find the fun in using it. Condoms.
Find the fun in using it and use it.
Well, you know what? The reality is that our high school students are having sex. People are having, sex younger and younger. And not even, that's been the case for many generations. We're not the first generation to have kids having sex in high school. So inform yourself. inform yourself because the more you are educated on sex, the wiser your decisions will be.
Don't be afraid. And once you're not afraid, you will be the one, you know, in the middle of that passion when you tongue kissing and stuff like that. You'll be the one to stop and grab the condom or that dental dam or that finger cot or the female condom or the lube, you know, stuff like that. If you're not, don't be afraid. When you're not afraid, you'll be the one, you know, on your first date. You might want to freak on the first night, and you bring up that conversation. You won't be, so don't be afraid. Just do it. Nike.